How's it going, guys? Randall aka Shizukatz here, and welcome back to the Tressa's Collectibles channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at the new 8 standby build for Quintessential Quintuplets, using a lot of powerful new cards from set 2. This is a deck that has done extremely well in the Japanese scene, and is expected to be just as strong of a performer in the English scene as well. So let's hop right in and see what this new deck is all about. First things first, let's run through the Climax combos. Our first combo is actually on a level 2, but it's intended to be played at level 1. This 2/2 Nino has the ability where, during the Climax phase, if she's brought out on stage by her Unstoppable Feelings Standby Climax, you can sack the Climax to stand her and give her 1000 power until the end of the opponent's next turn. Normally when you play a standby, you need to wait until the following turn to utilize that character, but Nino gets to act immediately. This can be especially useful if you draw the Standby Climax right before refresh, as you can safely play the Climax and immediately sack it to the waiting room for cost, without needing to worry about it getting left out of the refreshed deck. Nino's other ability gives her an additional 5000 power during your turn, as well as Hand Encore, as long as all of your characters are Quintuplets trait. This allows Nino to be a massive offensive threat with 12,000 attacking power, and 13,000 if she used the Climax combo that turn. By utilizing her Encore, she can stay on the board turn after turn and continue beating over your opponent's characters with her big offense. The level 3 combo in this deck is an absolute powerhouse. While she sits at a low 8500 base power, during your turn she gets an extra 4k power, bringing her up to 12.5. Additionally, she has on-play heal, and not one, but 2 Climax combo abilities. At the end of her attack, if you have her Standby Climax in play and 2 or more other Quints characters, you can pay 1, discard 1 to burn 3. This is an excellent cost for a burn 3, and easily allows multiple copies to be used within a single finisher turn. The fact that it's at end of attack means that you don't even need to battle or reverse an opposing character at all, making it very easy to use. Nino's other Climax combo actually works when she's not on stage. While you have her Standby Climax in the Climax area, the level 3 Nino gains a standby trigger icon wherever she is. That means that if you trigger a copy of her, she acts as a free standby without actually taking a Climax out of your deck, and this is the reason that this deck is often referred to as 12 standby, since you have 8 actual standby Climaxes and 4 Ninos. The Nino level 3 gaining a standby icon doesn't just have value when triggered though. There's actually a 2/2 event in Quints Set 2 called the Runaway Train of Love, which counts the number of standby icons within the top 9 cards of the deck to deal burn damage. While we don't run this particular event in this deck, it's definitely a neat design choice to utilize the additional standbys in a way other than just triggering them. Now let's get into the rest of the deck. At level 0, we aren't running any plussing profiles like big beaters or runners, instead focusing on a lot of utility and letting our standby targets do all the heavy lifting. One of the best additions to the utility lineup with set 2 is this level 0 Nino, with 2 on-play utility effects. The first is you can discard a Nino character to draw a card, and while only being able to discard Ninos for this effect can be a bit of a downside, there are a lot of Nino cards we don't want in our hand anyway. Additionally, the second ability can be activated by discarding any card, not just Ninos. Reveal the top card of our deck and salvage a character whose level is equal or lower than the revealed card. You may recognize this combination of abilities from Ruby, where it's on the level 0 James Ironwood, a card that the player base pretty much knew would already be very strong, due to the precedence set by this level 0 Nino seeing widespread play in JP. The next level 0 is the Ishika Riki. With her Riki ability, we can grab ourselves specific pieces from our level 0 line that we'll need moving forward, while simultaneously boosting us higher in damage to potentially level up and unlock an entire additional level's worth of standby targets. Additionally, her on-play top check can be useful for extra information, and the fact that she's yellow makes her the perfect candidate to allow us to play higher level yellow cards later on. The level 0 Itsuki Reverser from set 1 makes a reappearance in this set 2 build. Apart from her level 0 Reverser ability, she also has the Fukujiro ability, where on death you can discard 1 to look through the top 4 cards of your deck for a level 1 or higher card and add it to hand. This is a nice way to mill through the deck without paying any stock, and while there are a number of level 1 and higher cards that we actually don't want in our hand, it's the only way we can grab the 2/3 minus soul event other than drawing it. Another new powerful level 0 is this Nino. When placed on stage from hand, we can shuffle back 2 Quints characters into our deck from our waiting room to give +1 soul to one of our characters. A great way to supplement the normally low damage output of Standby, while simultaneously shuffling back soul triggers for even more damage, or even 3/2 Ninos to turn her into more Standby icons. Additionally, when we play Standby, we can bounce her back to our hand and give one of our characters plus 1000 power and the ability where, on attack, we can look at up to 2 cards from the top of our deck, leave one on top, and send the other to waiting room. This not only increases our offensive power with the plus 1k buff, but also ups the consistency of getting soul triggers or standby triggers when needed. Next up are 2 brainstorms. The Ichika has a Rest 2 Brainstorm 5, and for each Climax hit, we search our deck for an Ichika. Despite only being able to search Ichikas, having cards in hand is better than not, and being a Brainstorm 5 increases our chances to hit and get cards. Additionally, she has an act ability where you pay 1 and sack her to look at up to 4 cards from the top of the deck, and add up to 1 Quints character from among them to your hand. Between these 2 effects, Ichika alone can go through anywhere from 1 to 9 cards of the deck in a single turn, making her a potent tool for making sure our deck is always in a comfortable spot. The other brainstorm of choice is a one-of Nino brainstorm from the first set. She gives us a bit of waiting room access, as well as using her snowball power ability to give a minor buff